right, so today what I'm doing is I am replacing this throttle cable right here. If you notice, it's quite loose. I don't know what's going on with it. So like the pedal feel is quite sloppy. So since it's so loose, and I've tried to tighten it up and adjust it, but I'm just gonna get rid of it because I don't know if the cable's going bad or not. So what I did is I picked up one of these from PowerHouse Racing. Nice little billet braided steel piece. So looks pretty straightforward. I think all I really need to do is there's just a couple bolts back here that are holding it on from the inside, and I can show that. And then you just flip this throttle back, and there's like a little bolt guy on the front, and you just slide that out, and that should come out. And then there's just a couple of nuts under here holding the cable to this guy. I might have to take this bar out of the way. I'm not 100% sure yet, but if I can't slide that out, I could probably honestly just take the bolt out and slide it out the back. So I'm a little too lazy for fucking around with this too much. So I will try to pull that out that way. If not, I'll have to just loosen up the one nut on either side of the bar here and just kind of rotate it up so I can get the cable out. But looking underneath, what I have is, if you can see it or not, there's a couple bolts holding the gas pedal, and then there's a couple bolts up top that are holding the actual back of that plate on into the throttle cable. So I'll just take those guys out and then just take the whole pedal out, and I should be able to get to that pretty easily. One of the things that you do have to do with it is there's a little like rubber grommet and maybe another piece that you got to take off of the existing throttle cable, the stock one, and then slip it on this end over here. So we'll figure that out, and then we'll probably have to take it and size it up to be about the same as what my cable is that's in there currently. But like I said, it's kind of stretched out, so it might not be a good enough measurement. But there's a little end plate here with an adjustment, so I loosen that, and then I can slide this up and down the cable here to where it's nice and taut but not pulling on the throttle. Just a quick recap. So yeah, there's two 10mm bolts here holding the pedal to this pivot arm, and then you can see the throttle up above. I already loosened it from the top, so you see there's a lot of play there, but that's because it's already loosened from the top. It's off of the throttle. And there's two 10mm bolts up here. I've got enough extensions, I should be able to get at it like so, and then hit it with an impact. A couple duggas, and those guys should back out. When I go to put them back in, I probably won't be hitting it with the impact, but since I'm loosening, I don't really give a shit. So yeah, two bolts there, two bolts up there, both 10mm. Should be a couple seconds and these are out. Alrighty, so I pulled the throttle cable out. It was pretty easy. Like I said, there was two bolts on here that hold it on the inside of the firewall. You got to get from the inside of the cabin. That holds it on the inside of the firewall. And then there's two bolts on this guy that hold it to the firewall as well. And it all just comes out as one big monster piece. Now, looking at both of these, there's some nice features on the cable here from PowerHouse Racing that I like. Maybe one that I don't, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a major issue. So things I like are these little nuts, and granted, you don't really need a whole lot of clamping force on this to keep it stationary. I doubt you'd ever have a problem, but these are kind of nice. They're a little, extended. They hold a little bit more threads. One thing that is different, though, is if you look at them, the cable thicknesses are quite a bit different. Now, that's not a big deal, I don't think. I mean, it might be a little bit stronger, but at the same time, I'm obviously having issues with this being so loose and slack, and I can show you that in a second. And this being thinner, maybe it's stronger, I don't know. But at the same time, I'm not Hulk smashing the shit out of my gas pedal, so I don't think it's gonna be a big problem. One thing to note is if you see here, like let's for argument's sake kind of line these up length to length, right? So let's say we're about the same here, right? And then you follow it all the way up to here. You'll notice that there's quite a bit of a discrepancy between what I have for the length of the overall cable, and I'm looking at overall length, trying to do a rough comparison here. It's a little tricky because everything wants to bend a different way, but the overall length of the cable, you can see, is a little shorter than stock, and that might be because inside here this is getting frayed or something, that existing cable, and that's why it's so loose. It's not a big deal. It's actually probably fine because like I said, the stock cable was so loose, and this should tighten it up a bit. But I did notice that the length of the overall cable is shorter, and that might be indicative of this being frayed inside and stretched or something along those lines. So the pieces you need to take off are this little plate up here. I think this guy pops out pretty easy. Let me see if I can do it one-handed. Well, it's starting to come out, but yeah, this little guy pops out like that. Same up here. That guy comes out. You got to transfer this rubber grommet over to this guy. Transfer this guy onto it as well. And then this little rubber guy, probably take your little 2mm Allen here, loosen this guy up, slide it off. Take your little rubber guy, put it on there, slide the guy back on, tighten it down. And I'll probably leave this kind of all the way extended out. And then once I get it in the car, I'll try to, take all the slack out and tighten this up in the car. But yeah, that's what's basically dictating your overall cable length is this little guy here. So yeah, I'll take this apart. I'll probably end up cutting this cable because this is dicked anyway, so I'm not gonna get any use out of it. And then I'll just slide this guy through there, put all the other stuff on, and we'll be good to go. So, the magic of television. There you go. So this guy comes off. It's easier to slide everything down the cable, get it off this way than trying to manhandle it over this guy and potentially, rip this little rubber gasket deal. But yeah, that's back on there. This little guy, just be careful with it, because what I found is that I had to take the little guy out all the way. But when I took this off, it did fray the edge just so slightly, and getting this back on, it wasn't a problem. It fit back in that hole, but it's definitely a tight fit. So just be careful that you don't dick this up too much up here, or else like sliding this guy off and then trying to get it back over this is going to be a fight you're not going to be wanting to deal with right now. So anyway, I will probably go ahead and put this little guy back in there. Just tighten it up snug for now, and then we'll feed this back into the car. This is going to go from the inside of the car out of the firewall into that little hole, and I'll just slide all the way in until this guy sits down, and then 2 bolts to hold this guy in, and 2 bolts to hold this guy in. Alrighty, so S's and G's, there's the 2 bolt holes for the pedal linkage, and then up here is where this little throttle cable goes. Let's see if I can get it on the first shot, and we are in, but it is tight with those nuts on it, and there's no way to really remove them nuts. So all right, I got it in there, so I'll go ahead and pull it out from the other side, and then we'll kind of line up the pedal linkage and everything and tighten it down. And okay, so these bolts, no fucking joke under here. I'm getting too old for this shit. But yeah, you gotta basically contort your body hanging out the car to try to get these 2 on the top plate. But once you get them caught, man, you're fucking golden. Yeah, baby. All right, got them both in, at least hand snug, and then nail those bitches with an impact. Get my wrench in here, but they're hand snug for now, the 2 top ones, but this is a pain in the ass. Holy shit. Ugh. Okay, so the first problem I ran into is when I actually got it all set up in the car, the cable that runs inside was actually shorter. I think I brought this up in the first part of this video. The cable is actually shorter what was supplied than the overall length that was the cable that was in there. And I thought maybe the cable was stretched out, but it turns out the cable that was in the car is actually not stretched out at all. But the one that PowerHouse Racing sent me was a little shorter, and therefore the throttle end here, which I took off, it's over here, it's just held in with these little guys. But it was so taut that basically the only way I would make it fit is if I had this almost at the end, and then this would still have the throttle cracked open a little bit. So I called PowerHouse Racing. They're really good about it. They went ahead and just sent me a longer replacement cable, and if you actually do look at this one, it's even longer than the stock one that came out of the car. So it's, maybe an extra 3 or 4 inches longer than the one that they gave me, which should be more than enough. Like I said, it was just a bit too tight, and I don't know, maybe something with manufacturing or something specific with my car. The one thing I did notice is that this bracket here keep in mind, I have to reposition this back so the nuts are actually slip into the bracket here. I don't know if this is a different type of bracket that's normally on these cars, or if the other one actually comes forward a little bit more, but regardless, the cable is too taut for the length that they sent me. So I'll try the new cable, set it all up, and it should be fine. I should have a little extra slack, which I can trim off at the end. But yeah, PowerHouse Racing was great about sending it out to me. They sent it and it was here in 2 days, and no questions asked. They're like, yep, we'll send it to you. Super nice guys. So let's see how this goes together. Alrighty, and that wraps it up. So I got the cable in there now. It's actually situated with the 2 nuts holding it to the bracket. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's the stock bracket and it's just further away than like a normal standard bracket, because you can see like I've got quite a bit of slack in the back to where it goes to the firewall. So maybe that's why I necessitated the longer actual cable, but it's nice and taut. When I lightly step on the gas pedal, it starts to crack it open. So yeah, this is a nice piece. I'll take it for a drive and see how it responds, but yeah, this should make it a little nicer under the hood here. Still a lot to clean up and everything, but at least I won't have all that crazy slack like I did with my stock throttle cable. So hopefully this will address it.